Hey everybody, my name is Usama Young, founder of Believe in You, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Life, Lessons, Leadership, a conversation amongst my peers and young leaders. Today we've got a special guest, Reggie Love, former special assistant to President Barack Obama, and overall just a game changer. I hope you all gain as much from this conversation as I did. Y'all know how we start. 50 in, fellas. Those driving, pull over in the rain, D. Jones. But
Oh,
we got
50
50
in?
in.
Man.
Oh, you see me repping Largo, too. You see me repping Largo.
Pull over, D. Jones, and get your 50 in.
Oh. What the stupid. You stink. What are you doing?
I just started.
About 5 minutes. After has officially started.
Let's see, dude. You ain't got nothing to catch the sweat, dude, huh?
Nothing.
The car, your back seem real bold, boy. You had to drop that butt down a little bit.
Hey, y'all.
Keep flat, bro. Let's go push up now.
I don't know if it was because them push-ups y'all was loafing on.
Eggs done got to you.
But
I usually take a break between 25, man.
Hey y'all, I was gonna put on this hoodie that my man got me. Can y'all check this out? Can y'all see this?
Oh.
My boy on the line, another young got me that. Got this in the mail today. I was gonna put it on over to Largo, but I said, "Oh nah, it's a little hot. I'm gonna get funky in here." So hoodie season, man. It's the first thing coming on. Hey, DY, appreciate you, bro. Secondly, we typically start off with the 50 in. We got those in, but also we got to do an introduction. And as I catch my breath, I'll give you the prompt. Your name, your school, and something you've done this week to help someone out or make their life better, easier. So I'm gonna pop it off with I put Juju on the spot.
All right. So you said
then you pass the mic.
Okay. So you said something I did that helped somebody this week. Something that like I'm supposed to. My mom went grocery shopping. I help her put the groceries in the house, of course. But then, like as I'm supposed to. But then that's really it. That I can think about.
Good stuff. Pass the mic.
Darian, you got it.
My name is Darian. From Columbus. Something I did help somebody out is
You don't want to say nothing.
I helped my neighbor clean up his dog.
You helped your neighbor clean up his dog?
Hey, that's real. That's dedication. I don't know if you just made that up, but pass the mic to somebody.
Joshua.
Joshua Taylor. Wait, you said your name and your school and something you did to help? Joshua Taylor. I go to North Carolina A&T, and something I did. I went on a run this morning. I ran 2 miles. I'll pass it to Darian.
He just went.
All right. I gotta pass it. I gotta pass it on. Pass it to one of my peers, Bryant Williams. What up, man?
What's up, man? Bryant Williams from the Kent State University. Something I did this week to help someone out. I helped a young dude to get build his financial freedom this week. And I also helped another, and in the process of helping another client do the same thing. So helping them get into a life insurance, Roth IRA, and a living benefit plan as well. So that's what I did. I'm gonna pass it to DY.
Ooh, appreciate it. Darrell Young, school, Villanova. Something I did to help someone this week. I had a young dude reach out. That's a freshman in college. He asked me to assist him with training. So started training him this week at 6 a.m. in the mornings, which is terrible. But he reached out, so I had to do that. I'll pass it to Brock and Bryce.
Brock, you go.
Muted voice.
Nah, you wasn't muted, Brock. We heard everything you said.
My bad. How you guys doing? My name is Brock Morgan, and one thing that I did this week was I'm really not sure what I did for others, but before we started football workouts this week, and so the week before, I made sure to run. I did like 7 miles in 2 days, so I made sure I was well in shape, so that way the school workouts didn't whoop me like they did everybody else. Go ahead, Bryce.
My name is Bryce. I go to Kannapolis Middle School. And I cut my grandparents' grass.
Good work, Bryce. You gotta pass it, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the lead and pass it to Dakari.
My name is Dakari Bella. I go to Malik Creek High School, and one thing I did this week to help somebody. Yesterday I was outside breaking down, like there was a lot of boxes I had to break down for the recycle people. So I was doing that for my mom.
I think you said breaking down boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Pass it to somebody else.
James.
All right, James.
All right.
Okay, there you go.
I'm here. I'm fixing some stuff in my room. But I'm James. I attend Frostburg State University, and one thing I've done this week to to help someone else was I took care of my girlfriend this week. I think she tore a meniscus or something like that. So I've just been taking care of her, making sure she's all right. Just a little thing.
Good man right there. Nurse her back. Nurse her back to good health, man.
I'm gonna pass it to let me see. D Jones.
What up, fellas? D Jones, Wingate University. As I mentioned earlier, one thing I have been doing this week, I'm going to help my grandmother move her heavy furniture in the rain right now. So that's what I did this week. I'm gonna pass it to
hey, man.
I will. Madu.
Thank you, D. Jones. My name is Madiu Williams from University of Maryland. Go Terps. One thing that I did this week was to help a buddy of mine set up his LLC for his business. He is a budding, I want to say, DIYer. Throughout the quarantine, he's been fixing stuff in his house, and now he's looking at that as an opportunity for him to branch out and make some extra cash on the side. And I'll pass the mic to Caleb.
Good afternoon, brothers. Caleb Obumba, went to Benedict College. Go Tigers. One thing I did this week to help somebody out, I've been running, working out a lot. So my former high school teammate, my wrestling teammate, stays around the corner from me. He had a health scare, maybe March or April. I had him come out and start running with me. So I said we gotta get back in shape. So that's the one thing I did. So we got an accountability partner, making sure he together we can get back, not to our wrestling weight, but to a manageable, healthy weight. And I will pass it to is it Dr. J.M. Miller?
Yeah, that's John Carlos's pop. So let's get John Carlos on. Oh, okay. I didn't know you was on here. Bet.
Yeah, I'm on, man. Hey, everybody. Shout out to the brother from A&T, Aggie Pride. And I am here basically in support. My son, of course, and also the other brothers that are on here. I'm here in North Carolina, serve as a high school principal here in North Carolina. And so I help young kids every day, even in this remote learning environment. I help them every day. So shout out to all the guys that are on here, taking the time to try to better themselves.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you being on. Can you pass it to your son?
Yeah, passing it to John Carlos II.
My name is John Carlos Miller. I go to Dudley High School, and one thing that I've done to help somebody is carry somebody to a workout with me and try to help get them better at their craft and things like that. So.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Appreciate you, man. All right. Well, my name is Usama Young. I went to Largo High School, then Kent State. And one thing I did this past week was go out and serve with the family. We went and served meals in downtown or uptown Charlotte and had a good time, was able to, put some smiles on some people's faces and fill the bellies. I'm going to pass the mic to the guest that we have. And I thought somebody was going to call him out just organically, but I get to introduce him. I appreciate you being on. This is someone I hadn't met in person. Over the phone, we've had some good conversations. But Reggie Love, I'm passing the mic to you.
Okay. Reggie Love from Charlotte, North Carolina, but I live in Washington, D.C. 39 years old. And this week, what did I do to help people? I would say this week, I opened up a checking account in Durham, North Carolina at the first African-American founded private bank, which is Mechanic and Farmers. And then I had all of my friends and the two companies that I'm on the board of open up savings account and checking accounts with Mechanics and Farmers, M&F.
That's good stuff. I actually hit them up to get some support last year for my camp, man. Well, for the Foundations Weekend, Mechanic and Farmer, black owned, man, big time. With that being said, I wanted you to introduce yourself, tell your story, where you come from. I know you said NC, but just that journey, being a student athlete, and then moving forward. I don't want to take it by saying too much about what you've done and what you've gone through.
Look, well, give me a heads up on what are we thinking for time, so I make sure I don't want to talk too long on background. I can do it in 5 minutes or 2 minutes.
So we typically end the call at 2 p.m. and we got overtime for guys that want to stay on and continue to connect. Of course, I want dialogue. So I think everybody on here wants dialogue. We want to rap. We want to communicate. We want to talk about different ways that we can make change. But also we're inspired, man. I'm inspired by all the young guys that are on this call. I'm inspired by my peers, guys that I look up to, and even you having a unique story. We want to hear about it. So however long you feel, and also I might interrupt, and I challenge some of the younger guys to interrupt if they hear something that they got a question about while you're talking, because this is open forum.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm inspired too, because look, I think the only way we grow and learn and expand is by taking the time to open our minds and open our hearts and to open our our eyes to what's going on in the world and what's going on in our communities and what's going on in the communities around us. And the best way to do that is by connecting with people, and to see, such a great group of young men from across really the East Coast to be connected on a Saturday afternoon. I'm sure a lot of people, could be out watching football or doing something else. To take the time to do this, I think is truly admirable and inspiring. And so for me, as I was saying, I grew up in North Carolina. It's funny because people kind of know me for having worked for President Obama as his special assistant and personal aide. And everyone always assumes like, oh, well, you must be from Chicago, or your parents must be donors. But all that is not true. And my dad actually laughs because, he worked for Social Security for 43 years. And he ended up being he was the head administrator for the state. So anyone that got disability or Social Security would go to an office throughout the state of North Carolina, and he was the head person in charge for 12 years. And when he got the job, someone said to him, "Oh, did your son help you get this job?" And my dad was like, "No, man, I've worked here my entire life. I got this job myself." And that's really, kind of my story. I came from two parents, mom and dad, still together today. Just saw them this morning. They both graduated from North Carolina Central, where they met on the first day of class. No offense to the Aggies, because I got a bunch of buddies who graduated from A&T. And so they were the first two kids in their family to go to college. And my mom worked at Philip Morris until she quit her job to open up a little beauty salon on Beatties Ford Road, corner of Beatties Ford and LaSalle. The E. Jackson Professional Building, the building still stands today. She no longer owns the building, but like she built that building. She managed it on her own for almost 10 years. And we lived right off of Old Concord Road in Autumnwood over near Newell Elementary. And I grew up over there, went to school over there. It wasn't the bustling urban area that it is now. It was like the boonies. Harris Boulevard had 2 lanes, and there was no 485. And so my parents sent me to Newell, they sent me to J.T. Williams, and then they kind of had the idea that, in order for me to get the best opportunities educationally, they sent me to Providence Day. And so for those of you who aren't from North Carolina, Providence Day is a small private school, 100 kids a class, on the south side of Charlotte. About, now it's probably even longer now, but when I used to make that ride, it used to take 50 minutes each way to get there. So I went there 9 to 12, and I played football and basketball there, and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. I got scholarship offers from every major football program in the country: Clemson, USC, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, you name it. My heart, I really wanted to play basketball. And so when I went to, when I decided on the 4 schools I was going to visit, I visited North Carolina, UVA, Wake Forest, and Duke, because my dad and I are super close. And, my dad said to me, look, you can go wherever you want to go, but if you go really far away, I won't be able to come to all your games. And you know what, my dad's like my best friend. I didn't look at anything that was more than 3 hours away. So I'm probably like a, daddy's boy or mama's boy, whatever you want to call it. And so when I visited those universities, they asked me if I wanted to come there, and I asked them, I said, well, can I play hoops? And at the time, University of Virginia said no. Wake Forest said no. It was Carl Torbush was the coach of Carolina, said maybe, but we'll talk about it your sophomore year. And Carl Franks, who was the head coach at Duke, said, if you're good enough to play Duke basketball, play as much basketball as you want. And so I went to Duke on a football scholarship. I majored in political science and public policy. Everyone sort of thinks that I was like a basketball player, and because President Obama played basketball, people assume that I was like this great basketball player, but I wasn't. I was a walk-on. And to be totally honest, like I kind of I really was a football player, and I thought I would play for a long time. And my freshman year, we lost every single game we played in. We were 0-11. My sophomore year, we lost every single game we played in. We were 0-22. And at that point in time, I had to come to the realization that, look, there's a lot more to life than football. And even when you do everything right, you train all summer, you work your butt off, you know what, you may not start, you may not get all the targets you want, you may not make all the tackles you want, you may get injured. There are all these things that may happen that are out of your control. And even when you do everything the way your coaches tell you to do, the way your parents tell you to do, it may not work out that way. And it was a tough realization to have at the time because, I had never been in a situation where my actions and my competition and my work didn't bear fruit. And I think that is like one of the hardest concepts to understand, especially in this world. And I don't know how many people here are of faith and go to church and believe in God and all that stuff. But, I look at trials and tribulation as something that's correlated with faith. No one here has ever met God or Jesus, but we believe that it exists. And we always continue to put in the work and we always continue to study the word, even when we have not actually had that tangible moment where we've met him or seen him or her physically. And I think that's like what life is, because this group of men right here on this phone, when it comes to competing, we're always going to have to be smarter, faster, hungrier, show up earlier, stay later, to do all these things in a way that our peers and our non-diverse peers may not have to do in order to reap benefits and to bear fruit. And if you see that and you understand it, it's easy to lose faith in the work, and it's easy to lose faith in the preparation, and it's easy to lose faith in the idea that what we do matters. And so I've always kind of said, like, it's easy to work hard and to show up on time and to have a good attitude when everyone's telling you you're a winner, you're tall, you're funny, you're good looking. Like, it's easy to show up and do the work and to compete and to prepare then. It's hard to work and to compete and to compare when people tell you, you're not any good, we don't have respect for you, go back to where you came from. Like, those are the times in which the work that we do matters the most. And that's where I think I learned that from my parents and from my mom and my dad. And then I learned that from Duke football. I learned a lot from Coach K, but the resilience of how the world treats you when they don't believe you're a winner, I learned that from, working for season after season, day after day, and getting my butt kicked. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think it translated well to politics. And so I will say, so I studied political science and public policy in undergrad. And the funny story there is, you get to school and you got an academic advisor, and the academic advisor is telling you, oh, take this class. So after my second semester, so we did like a summer program before my freshman year. And then my freshman year, we did like our normal courses, and the academic advisors telling me the courses. After my first semester, I told my academic advisor, I was like, look, man, I'm not staying in the courses you're recommending me to take because, like, you know, I'm like in the class with like, I'm not with, you know, the whole student population, you know, and I think the idea of like going to college is to see the world and to learn. And so when all my college teammates were like majoring in sociology, I was like, look, I want to do something else and see something different. So I majored in political science, and then I ended up getting my second major in public policy.
Hold on. Hey, Reg, I told you every now and then I might cut you off. I'm thinking about the confidence that it had to take to go against the grain on that. So many student athletes on the phone here might say, hey, I'm going to take that same route as everyone else is telling me to do it. But what gave you the confidence to say, hey, nah, I ain't with that, and I'm going to speak up about it? And that goes to coaches, that goes to advisors, all that.
Yeah, I mean, look, like my general assumption was, I was in a class where it was like the large intro class to sociology, and I looked at the demographics of the class, and I was like, you know, I already know all these people. I see these people every day. You know, I live with half of them. They're in the locker, and was like, I wanted something a little bit different because, I mean, I think it's two front. One, you know, in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna go find some smarter kids so that I can work with them and get them to do the work. But on another level, I think at a deeper level, you know, I came from a school like Providence Day where I had this like strong academic background. And so, you know, I was able to see how the classes I was in at that time stood up to the classes that I took when I was like a junior in high school, you know, and so I had the confidence because I had went to a high school that was like steeped in college prep. And the only reason I went to Providence Day was because, and I like kicked and screamed, and I didn't want to go because all of my buddies I played AAU basketball with, they were at West Charlotte and Independence. And it was like this whole thing about kids that go to private school or they're like chumps and they're a little weak and they don't really want to compete. So they go to their own little conference, you know, and my parents were like, you know, look, you know, you want to go to whatever school you want to go to, that's fine, but you're not going to live here. And so, you know, my parents were like not having it. I went to Providence Day, and so that, I think those are really the 2 points around it, you know. And I think college prep is a real thing, and oftentimes in high school, you know, we think that all schools are equal, but when it comes down to it, and Dr. Miller, you probably can speak to this better than anyone on this line here, but you know, you get out of school what you put into it and what the leadership and the teachers put into it. And without the combination of those two things, it's really a coin toss. And obviously your parents, you know, what you're like, those are really the three pieces that determine the development of a young man academically. And until you've really experienced those things, then you haven't had that full development and preparation to go on to the next phase. And I'm not saying that that's like I'm not saying that is a negative, right? Because, you know, I look back across my friends. You know, my best friend, Andrew Moore, went to Independence, played ball there. Parents were divorced. We played for the Charlotte Royals for 6 years. You know, he makes, you know, $140,000 for Bank of America right now. And he never let any of the things that he didn't have stop him from wanting more. But I think he was aware of, you know, the things that he might have missed out, and then worked to try to supplement those things along the way. And, and I remember my first day at Providence Day, look, my parents, my parents are, they were middle class, but I thought my parents were rich. My parents made like $100,000 combined income. We had a house, we had 2 cars, we had Kool-Aid in the refrigerator. Man, I got to Providence Day, and I was like, there was like homes that were like 4 times the size of my home. Every kid had a Lexus. And I was like, none of these people play for the Hornets. I was like, what is going on in the world? And it was like, oh, my dad is a dentist. My mom is a da-da-da-da-da. My dad. And so, like, I saw it at the age of 14 when I got there that, everything isn't made equal, and that's fine. But to understand those things and understand what causes those inequities are the things that help you to figure out how you can try to solve for them or offset them. And I think more importantly, I think when you realize the challenges you face, it makes me think more about the challenges that the people behind me or younger than me face. And so, so to Usama's question, I felt prepared and confident. And look, I was a student athlete, and even though I believe that my coach had the best intentions for me, I'm the one who, and to the term that Robert Wynn said in your last call, I'm the one with the human capital. I'm the one out there running the routes and catching the balls, and I'm the one doing the stuff. So, like, if I'm the one doing the stuff, how's someone else going to tell me what I'm going to do when I'm not on the field? So,
that's real.
And so,
my other question that was on my mind was why political science? Was it to get involved in terms of your community? Was it to make change? Why'd you go with that?
Yeah, and so political science really for me, I grew up, my mom, so the history of it is my dad worked for Social Security because my mom's mom was the first African-American woman to work for Social Security in the state of South Carolina. And she put my dad in touch with one of the employees from Social Security in North Carolina that was also African-American. And so my mom always taught me Black history, and not just like new culture and entertain. Like history from like the origin of our people, how we got here, how we endured, how we fought, how we were freed, how we fought segregation, how we fought for the civil rights movement. And, my mom and my grandma would always tell me, like, look, you don't have a choice to not vote. There are people who have died for the right for you to vote. And for you not to respect that, for you not to understand that, and for you to forsake that, that is wrong. And I won't allow it. And so that was like, and I think my parents, I remember I was 12 years old, and it was a summer, and I was like hooping, right? I thought I was just getting into hooping, and all my buddies are hooping. And my mom was like, look, you are not leaving this house until you read this book and write a 2-page summary of the book. And it was the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. And that was like really like kind of the thing that spurred me and sort of showed me the importance of how our process and our infrastructure and our culture has an impact on how we evolve as people.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
I spent 4 years at Duke. We won a national championship in basketball my freshman year. I tore my MCL, PCL my junior year. I was actually the 3rd leading receiver in the ACC when I tore my MCL, PCL. And it was actually, I was like, it's sad, man. I cried like a baby. I had not probably cried, I cried more after they told me I wasn't going to play the rest of the season than I did when I got hit. My senior year, I didn't play basketball. I just played football, and I went and I trained for the combine. I got picked up priority free agency by the Green Bay Packers. And I loved Green Bay, loved everything about it. I was the 5th guy on the depth chart, and then got cut at the last cup at the end of training camp. Johnny Dawkins, who was the assistant coach at Duke at the time, who was also from this area here, from the DMV, called me up and said, hey, look, I just saw you got cut. You want to come back and play a 5th year of basketball because I had some eligibility. So I go back, I play 5th year of basketball. I get named captain. We had 7 guys on full scholarship on that team. And we won the ACC tournament, and lost in the Sweet 16. And I say to everyone, the reason that Coach K is a great coach is because he gets more out of his people than anyone else. He gets more out of average talent than anyone. And I think that's like the true sign of leadership, in which you can talk and communicate and understand your community, your team, your family, to inspire them to be better than what they believe they can be. And so at the end of that season, Bill Parcells, who was the head coach of the Cowboys, called my cell phone. And I think it's a joke. I think it's like one of my buddies. And he's like, hey, man, I think you should come to Dallas and play outside linebacker. So I hadn't played a snap of defense in almost half a decade since I was in high school. I think in college, I don't think I tackled one person in my entire college career. And went down to Dallas, put on 30 pounds, spent a year playing for the Cowboys. And that's where I really got educated, and mainly around the concept that, I grew up thinking, like, if I make it to the NFL, I'll be rich and I'll never have to work again. And then when I got to Dallas and I got like my first full paycheck, and at the time it was a lot of money, it was like $17,000 or something, but at 23 years old. And then I think back to one of the classes my mama made me take. I started doing the math. I was like, all right, how many snaps do I have to play to never have to work again? And it seemed insurmountable. And so at the end of the season, they were like, why don't you go to NFL Europe, get some more snaps, come back next year. And at that point in time, it was 2006, and I had classmates from Duke who were working at Goldman Sachs. And if I say something that someone doesn't understand, anybody feel free to interject and ask a question too.
I had a question. I was gonna say, with the knowledge you have now, and you went back to college and started over, what would you like do differently? Because you were still young at that time. Like, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I would say, starting in college, I wouldn't do anything differently. I think that everything that I did had a huge impact on how I've turned out today. I think the one thing that I always talk about and I joke about with my friends is that, when I got done playing hoops, Steve Wojciechowski, who was my position coach at the time, asked me if I was interested in thinking about playing in Europe. And there was this like big negative connotation about not playing professional ball in the States. Like, you're not good enough. And, you know, and I'm glad that I did pursue the NFL because I got no like regrets, or I have no sleepless nights about it, you know. But I do kind of wish I would have like went and lived abroad, because, you know, I didn't get outside of the country to see the world until I worked for Obama. And, you know, when I was working for the president and you got a chance to go to these other countries and see the culture and see the diversity and see, you know, all the different things that they do differently. You know, you go to London. London is an amazing city. And I tell everyone they should see London, one, for its history, and two, for how progressive it is. And the two things that they do in the UK that are absolutely amazing, which I had no clue about. I didn't know this until I was 27 years old. Now, and I went to college and all this stuff, right? 27 years old. One, everyone gets health care and a college education. Everyone. And two, every neighborhood, the rich neighborhoods, Notting Hill, Chelsea, to the poor neighborhoods, all neighborhoods have the same amount of public housing. And so what's public housing? Public housing is like housing for people who make under a certain level of income. And so in the US, how we typically look at housing is we say we're going to do housing in a way in which we take a large plot of land, we put all the people who have the least amount of resources in one neighborhood, and then if they make it out of that neighborhood, great. But you look at London, every kid at a school sees a whole spectrum of it. They see socioeconomic, they see gender, they see race, they see all these different things that oftentimes we don't get to see here in the US until we're adults, until we're 20, 22, till we get to college. You know, you got some people who had never gone to school with like a person of color until they get to college in some places, you know? And so that's the one thing to your question, what I do differently. You know, I wish I would have been able to open my mind at an earlier age to understand and see all the possibilities that are out there. And not just here in the US, not just the difference between North Charlotte and South Charlotte, or West Charlotte and Providence Day, or Duke and Carolina, or, you know, UNCG and A&T, but to like see that I would have loved to see more at an earlier age, because I think it would have had an impact on how I took in information when I was in college. And I think I would have taken college more seriously. And that's the other thing. I didn't pay for college. You know, I think because I didn't pay for college, I didn't try to get as much out of education as I could have when I was there, because it felt free.
Reggie, I have a question. Based on what you just said with regarding the ability for you to travel a lot sooner, earlier in your upbringing than later, for those young men that are on this call who are currently in college, would you advise them to possibly look into travel abroad program that is available to them, just to be able to?
Yeah, I would. It depends, right? It depends on what year you're in. I think the number one thing to do in college that is the most critical, well, look. So for football, clearly the number one, if you want to play after college, clearly the number one thing you want to do is to prove and show your strength, speed, health, knowledge of the game to scouts, right? Like that's clearly like, and you want those people to think that you're a good person and you're committed to the game, right? Now, and that's like a hard decision to make, right? Because like I'm not one to say who's going to play on the next level and who's not. You know, I always thought that I wanted to and had the talent to play on the next level. And that the thoughts evolved. Like when I played receiver at Green Bay, I played behind Donald Driver, Javon Walker, and Robert Ferguson. And I was like, nah, man, those guys are better than me. Like I wasn't like, like hands down, guys are better than me. And so the number one thing to get is experience. Something that is professional experience that will allow you to put on your resume when you go to an employer to say, you know what, someone has already trained me in a professional manner, so you can hire me with ease. Like, I think that's like the most important thing to do. So if I were a junior going into my senior year and I hadn't had an internship and hadn't worked or hadn't like went out and started to learn about a company that maybe I were interested in, I would not trade abroad for an internship. But if you can do abroad and an internship, abroad is it's the best thing to do.
No, I know we had a few other folks with questions.
Yep, sorry, my fault. I can chime in there if you want, my fault. Mr. Love, I appreciate you sharing all that information. One of the things I feel like I didn't learn, maybe because I didn't pay attention in high school and middle school, but the importance of voting at the state, local, and national level. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, look, Usama, did you send around that little PDF or PowerPoint I sent you?
Nah, I made you a host, man, and I was like, share that screen, go on and present, but I will share that.
Okay, I mean, look, so people haven't seen it. So basically, I mean, that's a really good question. It's actually the most important question. And so one, voting is important, and clearly who the president of the United States is really important. I think, everyone on this call is old enough to know the difference between a president like Barack Obama and Donald Trump. Now, that being said, there's so many other factors in that, right? So at the federal level, the biggest part of the federal government is that it's got three bodies. It's got the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. And each one of those entities have the ability to work across one another and creates like a system which is really known as checks and balance, right? So if the Democrats have the Senate and the House, they have the ability to put a significant amount of checks on a Republican president. So like, some people here from North Carolina, Cal Cunningham is running against Tom Tillis for the U.S. Senate. And if Tom Tillis loses and two other senators lose, like Colorado, where Governor Hickenlooper is running against Cory Gardner, or Susan Collins loses in Maine, or Jamie Harrison in South Carolina beats Lindsey Graham, that could have a huge sway on the checks and balances that go into regulating and making sure that the president isn't off the rails. A crazy statistic is that Donald Trump has appointed more federal judges than any president in history. And not one of those federal judges is black. Not one. Over 100 judges. It is the most scary fact. And so that's like federal, right? Now, ironically, the Tillis-Cal race is local to the guys who are in North Carolina, right? But that local vote has a really big impact on our federal process. And so, and obviously people know we've got a representative government, and the representative side comes from the House. and then every state gets 2 senators, right? And so whether or not North Carolina has, 9 representatives or 15 representatives will all really deal on, how population growth happens and what the next census, which is being taken right now, says. But then, like, when you get to the city level, and the cities are different, right? Because, like, in PG County, you got a thing like a county executive. It used to be, what's the guy's name? Rashern Baker. It's now like Angela also Brooks. But in Charlotte, you got a mayor, and the mayor is a weak mayor. And so she's like really a figurehead. And the person who has all the power in Charlotte is the city manager. And the city manager is not elected. The city manager is appointed by city council. And so, like, the local element of control. And then the other big piece of Charlotte is the county. The most powerful person in Charlotte it's the chair of the Mecklenburg County Commissioner, because they control all the money for the schools, for the sheriff department, for the roads. I mean, they are, and no one talks about them because they try to be as apolitical as possible. But when it comes down to it, like, that is the most, I mean, it's for your community. When you start talking about, access to schools, quality of schools, access to healthcare, access to transportation options so you can get to and from work or school, the county commissioners in Charlotte are like, that's it. The county commissioners in Mecklenburg County, sorry. And so, and then also, and I can't remember in Charlotte, either. I can't remember how you typically have a chief of police and you typically have a sheriff. And the chief of the police and the sheriff, some cities they vote for them and some of them are appointed by the mayor. And in the places where you vote, like when you vote directly for them, that's super important. And then in the places where they're important, and the places where the mayor appoints them, it's important to make sure that the mayor or the county commissioner is holding those people responsible. So, like, if you're a city, you live in a city and they haven't passed 8 can't wait, you got to figure out how your sheriff and how your city chief police department got their position. And if it were through an election, then, like, you need to organize and you need to talk in your community and send a letter and get your neighbors and your community members and send a letter to say, look, man, this is an important issue. We want you to get this passed. And if they're appointed, you need to send a letter to the person that appointed them and say, you know what, if you haven't passed 8 can't wait, you need to pass it now. And that does not take legislative action. That just takes action by the leader of that department. But to your point, Daryl, the local politics are super important, and every city, every county is a little bit different. I think that's by design, but I think that's also because, all the issues, even though all the issues are the same, the demographics aren't the same. I think in the South, because of when you had slavery end, you had a lot of mechanisms in place that were around Jim Crow that basically were designed to keep people's voices from being heard. So in the South, you'll find that most of these public offices are appointed versus being directly elected. And that's typically because, when there were more black people than there were white people, this was a tool that white people used in order to make sure that they kept the power as long as they could.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Since you've been at the the top of the branches of government, what are your ideas of how us as Black people, specifically on this chat, Black men, gain political capital and to be able to use, because as you look at it right now, us as Black people in this country haven't gotten any significant policies since the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So we talking, it's been a half a century since we got anything significant. So how do you think we gain the political capital to be able to eventually use it?
I mean, look, I think that there is political capital that has been gained. It has not been transformative, but I think in pockets you've seen African Americans perform well. I think I would say it depends on what you want to get accomplished, right? I think for me, I'm an education person. I think and education is a hard topic because education at the foundation solves long-term problems. But if I got problems today, if I don't have access to food today, if I don't have access to transportation today, if I don't have access to healthcare today, then, education is important, but it's not as important. And that's always like a balance that people are trying to a balance that people are trying to get right. And so for me, I like to focus on education, and I think that is a very local issue. How schools are funded, the relationship between the teachers union and the city and the county. And all of those things I think those things can be solved with human capital, with dialogue, with discussion, and getting people to understand, both sides of the equation. For example, as you think about COVID, there's a big fight between the unions and schools right now around what remote learning means and whether or not teachers are going to go back to school, whether or not they're going to get more pay, whether or not there's going to be enough money available to get Wi-Fi and devices to students, whether or not there's going to be money for training for teachers who have never taught digitally. And look, and Mr. and Dr. Miller, if I'm saying anything wrong that's out of school here, feel free to jump in here and interrupt me. And so for me, I think that's a local issue. And I think the way you do that is you organize locally with the leaders in your community, and you have a conversation about what's important to people. I'd also say that think about it doesn't necessarily mean running for something like U.S. Congress, but if there are ways for you to serve in volunteer positions in your community, whether or not it's as volunteering for the election commission to make sure that everyone has a place to safely vote. If it's an idea where you want to go work for the city for the summer, an intern for your city councilman, and learn the ins and outs of the city. If it's fundraising, you got some friends that got a couple dollars, you want to do a small fundraising event for an elected official so that they'll come in and say, oh, well, thank you for supporting me. What can I do to help you? And ultimately, really understanding where the revenue comes from. Like every city has a thing called a general fund. And a general fund is all the elements that are tax generating functions that bring money into a city or a county, and understanding what those things are in a way so that if you work for if you're in a city like Maryland and they got a lottery or a casino, and you work for the lottery commission or the casino commission, you got a lot of power, because the lottery and the casino generate probably 20 to 30% of the state revenue. And so I would look at those places that create a lot of revenue for the state and for the city, and understand who those people are and understand what they do and why they do, and make sure they know who you are, and figure out how you can add value to them, and not necessarily just through work. You know, maybe some of these guys, maybe they go to your church, maybe you play ball with them, like, and sometimes you may not know them at all, but these people, they're not like superstars. No one's talking about it on TV, but some of these people control 10, 20, 30 million dollars a spend on certain issues.
I got to chime in, and I appreciate that insight, man, because I like that small fundraiser thing. Going back and forth with them in that regard, but I even want to touch on something that young guys, you all might have questions, but I want to ask this one for them. As a high school student or a college student athlete, what advice would you give me? What advice would you give me as I progress into adulthood or my upper adolescent years in terms of reaching my goals and navigating this thing called life? We're going to have some changes in terms of what we want to do. We're going to have some confusion, but I want to get your thoughts. It ain't no right or wrong answer, but I know you got some valuable perspective.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think for college, depending on where you play, but it doesn't really, it probably depends on what sport you play. If you play basketball or football at a university, you are a significant part of that university for a whole host of reasons. For alumni engagement, you know, the things that get folks excited about coming back to the school and giving money to the school. On campus engagement, you know, you got homecoming and, you know, students come to the game. Like, you may not feel like you're the most important person in the world because maybe you're the sixth guy on the team, but like ultimately you are a leader on campus and you have a voice, and don't waste the opportunity to make your voice heard. And even though you may not be paying for college, and John Thompson Jr. just died. And John Thompson Jr. talked to me when I was 14 years old. I couldn't drive. And he said to me, get more from the game than the game gets from you, period. And that is knowledge, money, experience, travel, friends, relationships. I would say people are going to want, and this is going to sound very perverse, right? Because like in my mind, you know, this concept that there are a lot of people out in the world that who wouldn't, what's the word, the right word? Who wouldn't like fuck with you if you weren't like an athlete. And in my mind, you're like, those are not my people. Right. I don't want to be with someone who wasn't with me before I was where I was at. But in my mind, that person who is now open, who wasn't open to getting to know me, is now open to getting to know me. I'm thinking, okay, I might get to know you, but like, what is it that I can get to learn from you? What is it I can get from you? Because like the same way you're going to try to get something from me, I might as well do the exact same thing. Now, I think you have to be open-minded and careful and cognizant about this because, you know, like oftentimes the safe thing to do is to say, I don't want to do anything with people I don't trust and know. But my general point of view is that it never hurts to listen to people, even if you don't know them, even if you think they are, ill-intended or misguided, you know, it never hurts to listen. And that's college. And in high school, And then the other thing in college is don't miss the opportunity to learn. You don't know everything. And even though we are athletes and we're the best at what we do, and we have all the confidence around the things that we do, the things that we don't have confidence in, the things that we aren't good at, don't let our superiority of the sport that we play keep us from going into the things that we don't have knowledge or experience in. Don't let that be a blocker to our own evolution, to our own growth, and to our own expansion. And then for high school, look, man, high school is great. And as you think about the high school experience, I think the biggest thing you have to do is you've got to work and you've got to learn and you've got to be open-minded. Like, we all think about the college selection process as like a starry-eyed thing. Like, I always wanted to go to North Carolina, or I always want to go to this school, or I always want to go to that school. And ultimately, the school that we end up going to, or the team that we may end up playing for, might not be the thing that we think we are going to do. We thought we were going to do that whole time, but that's okay. You know, the life is long. We think, and it's good to be passionate, and it's good to have dreams, and it's good to want to head in a direction, but life is not linear. You know, no one's life ever goes just like this. Life goes like this for everyone. And just because we're off course, or just because we're not doing the thing that we thought we were going to do, it does not mean we're doing a thing that God didn't put us here to do, or the thing that's actually going to be the most important thing that happens to you in your life. And I think that's like a big perspective to take when you're in high school, right? Because you haven't quite seen the world.
Indeed,
I
had to unmute.
Okay.
I had to unmute. I know Dr. Miller was about to share something. We're gonna come to a close shortly, fellas. We went over time already, and I do want to be respectful of you all's time. But before you do exit, make sure you get your 50. Dr. Miller, what you had?
We got to do another 50?
Absolutely. 50 in, 50 out. We getting this knowledge throughout. We gotta get our physical in as well. So hey, working the mental and the physical.
Just one piece that I wanted to chime in on myself, along with what Brother Love was saying, particularly for the guys that are in high school, and even for the ones that are in college too. My experience has been that sometimes it's very easy for us to try to follow the crowd, to try to fit in, to try to be like, to want to try to subscribe to what everybody else is doing, and not, walk to the beat of our own drum, particularly when it's in our best interest to do so. So one of the things that I would encourage the young guys to do is to recognize that, the decisions that you're currently making right now, whether you're in high school or college, you're making those decisions for people that you haven't even met yet. Because at some point you're going to have your own families, you're going to have your own spouses, your own children, et cetera, et cetera. And the decisions that you are making today are going to impact them in the future. So while you may not see the 5 to 10 year to 15 years out from now, just realize that you don't want to make decisions for the sake of trying to fit in, and ultimately end up leading to the demise of those who are going to be depending on you in the future, which is your family, your future family. So every decision that you make now, just make sure that you're making the right choices, whether it's, what college to go to, whether it's what sport to play, whether it's should you study right now or should you not. All of those different things, they will have an impact, and those consequences will either be positive or negative. Just make sure you make the choices that are going to have a positive benefit for your life. And that's all I wanted to add.
And I think Dr. Miller made a very good point there. And when you make a choice that has a high level of negative consequence, as I said earlier on, how you got to be smarter, faster, work harder, all these sort of things than your non-diverse counterparts. When you make a mistake, that mistake has a exponent next to it. Like our mistakes cost us more than our counterparts that are non-diverse. And so like your friend who doesn't look like you, who's doing something, and you're like, I can do that too, and the outcome will be the exact same way, that is false.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, I wanna say thank you, man. Thank you for being on. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your experience. I'm gonna be real with you. I got a lot more to talk to you about. I'm sure several of the guys on have a lot more to talk to you about. If you can stay after these 50, it will be great. For the young guys, I encourage you to stay as well. But let's knock out these 50 and close out, man. Life, leadership, lessons, man. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you, Reggie.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me. I'm gonna do 50. I'm gonna do 50. I'm gonna cramp up tonight in my sleep, but like it's all good.
This 50 touched the nerve now.
10. 20. 30. 40.
Mr. Love, you got your shirt off, man?
I'm just.
Yes, sir.
Woo.
No, that's just sweat. Whew. Man.
Good work.